For the case study that we had in this course, really the biggest thing that we're looking at is that the student is struggling with his behaviors and outbursts following his parents' divorce. What we see is that the teacher really is ill-equipped to provide the proper support, and because the special education teacher is new to a small district and new to the job, she's facing just kind of a tougher situation with figuring out how to, one, support the teacher, but two, ensure that the student is receiving the proper support systems that he deserves as far as the education system is concerned. Really what we know with this is that the big key element is that the student's outburst started following the parents' divorce. At the home, he'd seen his parents have violent tendencies, but the extent of which really hasn't been fully clarified. The student started acting out in class with behaviors directed at himself, and then that progressed to behaviors acting out towards adults. The teachers come to the special education instructor at the school asking for the child to just simply be removed, that was what the previous special education teacher had done, and that was what she had expected. The outbursts really, again, are just directed at the adults, and it's not something that we're seeing problems directed towards the children, towards his peers at this point. And I think it's really important to note that the special education teacher is new to the job and just fresh out of college, and that impacts her ability to feel confident in how she is handling the situation. The small district that she's working for shares employees, which makes it harder to provide the proper support systems that this student and other students might need in order to make sure that they are provided with the right interventions. What I need to know more about really is just what interventions the classroom teacher has tried. It discussed the consequences and the reward system, but I would want to know more exactly about what the consequences and the rewards were, how those were implemented, and at what point she would intervene with a child's behavior. I'd also really like to know specifically what triggers the behavior. Is it something that is said? Is it something that happens? Is it an interaction that he has with the teacher that's causing him to react the way he's reacting? We just need to know quite a bit more in terms of how he is escalating to the position he's in. I also want to know what aggressive behaviors he witnessed at home. What was it that he saw in terms of his mom and dad interacting, and how that might have potentially impacted his own behaviors right now. I'd also like to know a little bit more about his sleep patterns, that if he is having this aggressive behavior, there's a good chance that he's also having issues with sleep, and that could also be impacting his ability to manage himself and to monitor his own behaviors within the classroom. And then I also want to know what strategies the classroom teacher has used or is comfortable using, and not just in this situation, but strategies that she may have used in the past with other students who might have posed similar situations or issues. As far as category 1, the problem identified, really we're looking at the idea of the emotional trauma. The emotional trauma is potentially triggered by adults. It's triggered by the lack of interaction that he's having potentially with his mom and dad, with his dad being out of the picture, and his mom struggling to make ends meet and provide the attention for the students. What he's getting in the classroom also is that same kind of negative attention from the adults in the building, and so it really could be contributing to a significant lack of self-worth. Those emotions or those behaviors could really be enhanced by the behaviors that he witnessed. And then they also could be enhanced by him receiving negative punishment or consequences and just feeling very undervalued in terms of who he is and what he can do. As far as the plan of action goes, at this point, I really want to make sure I'm supporting the special education teacher, because she is absolutely right that the student deserves to be in the classroom that he's in. However, it's important to really make sure that you're honoring the feelings of the classroom teacher in the sense that she feels threatened or unsafe. And so we need to make sure that there are strategies put in place to address those concerns as well. I would really be requesting, as an educational leader in the building, support from the district level with this situation. It mentioned that the brother or the older siblings were receiving some sort of kind of counseling or treatment, at a different school, and I think it's important that this child actually receives some similar kind of treatment or counseling. I'd like for the student to meet with a school psychologist weekly for a month, and then to continue with that plan as he starts to be able to manage and even just understand what he's feeling and how it's causing him to behave. So just kind of wean him off of those meetings as he's feeling better supported. As far as in-class strategies, I think it's important that the classroom teacher understands that she absolutely has the ability to implement strategies that's going to make him successful, make her feel safe, and to also create a learning opportunity for the rest of the students in the class. It's important that the special education teacher and or the school psychologist work with her to make sure that she understands what she needs to do, the language that she might need to use, and how to interact with the child based on his behaviors. We definitely need a safe space for him to de-escalate, and so I think it's important that the special education teacher be willing to provide that space. So when it is causing problems for learning within the classroom for him and for other students, that there's a place for him to go to be able to bring his emotions back to a normal level. I would also like to ask the in-class educator to be able to chart the students' behaviors to see if we can start to figure out what is potentially triggering them, since the child really wasn't able to articulate where that was arising from. I think it's important to be asking for cooperation from the parents, not just in implementing this plan because they seem willing to just go along with anything that we suggest, but I think it's important that we enforce or emphasize the language that they're using at home and that they're using similar strategies at home so that he's getting the same message in both locations. I think it's important too for the parents to be communicating with the school about escalations in behavior or areas that we can identify as being positive reinforcements in terms of his behavior and successes. And I think it's also important for the school to maintain communication with the parents just to provide updates on the behavior and how he's progressing academically with this plan in place. The resolution of the issue, and I outlined a little bit of it, but the main resolution is that the student will be kept in his current class with a support structure in place. Really, in looking at the situation, the student showed no signs of any sort of emotional situation or emotional behavioral issues prior to his parents' divorce. And it was pretty clear that the behavior started following the divorce. The student is not identified as needing cognitive assistance in terms of developing academically. And so removing him from a normal academic environment is going to really hurt his ability in terms of growth. I think it's important to, though, note that the classroom teacher needs to feel secure. She needs to feel supported and she needs to feel like she has been heard in terms of her issues. And so it's important to recognize at what point she needs to step in and ask the student to go to his de-escalation space. And so really kind of looking at what those behaviors are, what she can do to support him, and really how she interacts on a day-to-day basis, not just with him, but with the whole class. And the student definitely needs to have support from adults. Right now, it really seems as though he's perceiving rejection from any adult who should be giving him positive interactions and positive reinforcement. And so I think it's important that we recognize that he needs to understand that the school is a safe space for him, and it's a place where he's going to be built up rather than brought down. As I reflected on this, I really struggled because as a classroom teacher, it's very tough to feel like you're addressing every single student in providing them with the right education when you have a student that you have to continually address behavioral issues for. However, I really, in reading the situation, felt for the student more than anything else because it was clear that that student was not being given the opportunities that he needed, and he wasn't being given the support that he needed given the recent events. I think it's really important too for the student to be loved and encouraged as he's going through an emotional transition, and as his parents really process what's going on and figure out how they need to interact with one another and interact with their children in order to have it be a positive environment for their kids to grow. There are definitely some issues that I really feel like I would want resolved and that I would want to be able to investigate some more. I want to make sure that the home situation is a safe place for these kids. I think it's necessary that we continue to pay attention to those things and make sure that the school is aware of potential abuse situations that we might need to follow up on. I think it's also really important as a building leader, educational leader, that the staff needs to understand that they do have a role in supporting students with all needs. The teacher in this situation really just clearly had the notion that a kid could be removed if the kid was not behaving the way that she deemed appropriate. And it's important for us as educators to make sure that that isn't the case. And it's important for me as a leader to support the special education teacher in providing that support as they begin to learn how to handle these situations. So I think really building up the relationship between the new special education teacher and the other teachers in the school so that it doesn't escalate for either one of those as the situation continues to develop. In terms of reflecting on the standard, on standard two, more than anything for me, I think it's important that we're empowering our teachers in the right way. The standard is significant because we have students coming from so many different places. It doesn't matter if we are a rural school or a suburban school or an inner city school. All of our students are coming from a different position, and we have to be able to educate them from where they're coming from. And we have to be able to do it in a way that's appropriate and insightful and helpful and cooperative as a building. So in terms of enhancing the instructional capacity, really what I was looking at is that I felt as a leader in this situation, I needed to empower the teachers, whether it was a classroom teacher or the special education teacher, by challenging the classroom teacher's way of thinking and supporting the special educator's assertion that the child need to be maintained in the current classroom. But in doing so, after challenging the teacher's thinking, I think it's important that we make sure that they're provided with the proper skills and support in order to actually accomplish what we're asking them to do. If they don't feel like they have the skills, the understanding, or the support, then it's going to be hard for them to really build that instructional capacity. And the final thing is just really making sure that we're encouraging cooperation among staff members. It would be very easy for there to be ill will among the teachers involved in this situation, and I'd want to make sure that was avoided at all costs, because if there's conflicting mentalities among the teachers aren't going to be able to build that instructional capacity because they have to work together to make that grow. The students were able to gain academic support, academic success in this because it really was going to provide an opportunity for all students to learn. It wasn't the mentality that if you don't fit the mold of my classroom, that you're going to be asked to leave. The classroom expectations are maintained for every single student, so they're expected to behave in a certain way while they're in the room. But when needed, they're going to be given the support system to make that not a non-issue. And then just in terms of the classroom environment, as long as students are feeling included, they're going to be able to work together, and they're going to be able to support one another, and they're going to be able to help one another learn. So just that inclusivity just changes the learning for all students involved. And in terms of the personal well-being, the students have to have a safe space, and in order to have that safe space, every single student has to feel valued in that environment. They have to feel like they are wanted there, not just by their peers, but by their teacher and any other volunteers that might be in the room. Teachers are better equipped in this situation to keep the functionality of the room. They're able to maintain the processes that they're expecting when the teacher knows how to handle various situations that might arise and make it work for everybody. And again, with all of these processes in place and that instructional capacity enhanced among the teaching staff, the students are going to feel safe to learn and to be themselves and to be able to express the situations that they're dealing with and communicate more effectively so that they can continue to grow. Thank you.